Welcome to Dweller of the Dark. We are a channel honoring the yellowed and blackened bones of many prominent authors. We will be digging up several obscure, strange, and forgotten authors who influenced many of the great horror, science fiction, and fantasy writers today. More tales of the horrifying, obscure, strange, and forgotten are climbing out of the tombs. Subscribe, comment, like, donate, or I'll send Thaddeus Forge to steal your heathen soul. Unknown horror masters, send us ghoulish delights for the Skull and Bones collection. Your pound of writer's flesh will continue to feed our ghouls for now. Books, websites, podcasts, in the links below. Children of Horror, Legion of Ghouls. Tonight, The Devil of Black Bayou, Chapter 2. I dreamt that I had done a horrible thing, so that burial was to be denied me, either in soil or sea. Neither could there be any hell for me. Lord Dunsany. My memories continue to wash in like the ebb and flow of the tides, back toward that faded night so long ago. My recollections flicker and sputter as candlelight in a gathering storm. The images wind and twist and spider out as the flow of innocent blood on a charred, heaving deck cast adrift in a spiraling vortex. I'll always be your wayward wanderer, Marie. I whispered, relieved by Lucien's appearance back on deck. He was finally barking orders to set sail for the remote port of St. Antioch, northwest of us. All there was to do now was to cut the hemp ropes and release Marie and myself. Then naturally, the crew would drop us off so we could book passage back to Louisiana and get home to Barataria. Once there, I had nervously explained myself to the raised, skeptical brow of Jean Lafitte. Once he heard of Lucien's insubordination and ill-mannered behavior, there would be hell to pay. I love you, Anton. Unexpectedly, she blurted out the rarest of phrases between us. That we loved each other in our years of marriage was without question. We just didn't feel the need ad nauseum to say it every waking hour. Rarely did we say what we showed in our respect, our intimations, and our embraces to each other, which to this very day makes me question that cataclysmic moment all the more in its veracity. All these centuries later, her words, "I love you," and the tight gripping of my calloused hands, as if her life depended on it, still haunt me. Had she sensed something in the moment that I had not? What would have made her make such a heartfelt acknowledgement to me in the very moments we were being freed from Lucien Parsons and our heinous captors? With the proudest of smiles on my face, I confessed back to Marie as well, softly. I love you too, Marie. It appears my humility bought us our release. Now all we have to do is book safe passage to Louisiana when we port. Then I joked, but I'll look for an island to maroon us, if you like, on the way home. No, I like hot baths, shopping, coffee, and clean water too much, Anton. We both laughed. I knew despite her romantic dream of us alone on an island, she'd grow weary and restless. Most likely, after a month, she'd kill me out of boredom. And Marie knew all our talk of sanctuary as well was a pipe dream, a misguided, idealistic ruse. Then, I detected my wife hissing, seething indignantly, and grinding her teeth in outrage, with a temper that matched only my own. Let them keep the damn ship in all of it. I have the greatest treasure by my side. You. Yes, this ship, wood planks and all, is just a meager old ship. I can always build a new one. My love, Lord knows, I built enough of them with Jean. And the treasure we hid out on Galveston, without the crew, thankfully, is just a box of useless trinkets compared to you, Marie. I whispered back to her as I watched Lucien striding around barking orders like a proud peacock. I took note of Lucien as he looked out on the southern horizon. He stared on as a fireball of lightning ignited the sky in a bluish-white blaze over a crashing wave. That particular peculiar blaze of lightning was to me the most curious of sea illusions. For a moment, I could swear I'd seen the face of a roaring demon's head as the bolt struck the towering, crashing wave. The head of the brief image was horned and lit ablaze in the same green phosphorescence as the seas of Devil's Canyon. And as strangely as it had formed, it was equally curious in the way it slowly dissipated beneath the churning sea. Rather than just extinguish and go out, it seemed to hover as an alligator's head might before finally lowering into the deeps. And in the demon face's descent, it left the oddest of darkness in its final sputter of reddish light. For a moment, as my eyes adjusted, I saw Lucien vexed at the lightning strike of the surf. He seemed dazed and out of sorts a moment. He rubbed his chin and narrowed his eyes. Swooning, I almost watched him drift over the rail into those dangerous swells. But he didn't topple over and somewhat regained his balance. He righted his body, lowered his head, and stood thinking a minute. After a moment of arguing with himself over his deliberations, Lucien cast confused eyes over to his men. Narrowing my own eyes and feeling a slight unease, I voiced my concerns to Marie. I didn't care for the look he was giving to Black Jim and his murderous lot. Lucien Parsons, my dear friend, can I trouble you to release us, kind sir? I was getting the jump on the man before he had second thoughts of our release. I called out with the friendliest request I could muster. In accordance with your wishes, once you make good on your promise, neither Marie nor I will burden you anymore until we land at port. We had an accord to be let loose by your promise, did we not? Marie added in calmly to fortify my words. Yes, please release us, dear Lucien. The bindings are hurting my baby. Oh dear, Marie and Anton, where are my manners? He moved briskly from the deck. With a leering smile, he unsheathed his sword as he approached us. Ladies first, mon ami. I almost heaved with the deepest of relief. Lucien had finally seen reason for once. I'd take this kindness of his into consideration when I dealt the justice all the mutineers would receive. Maybe I'd exile him in the Yucatan or near Campeche. My thoughts were frozen stiff by an icy chill of dread. Something was wrong in what he had said. Released! Then there was the pace and the angle he was traveling toward me and Marie. Lucien wasn't raising his arm to hack the ropes. He wasn't ordering his men to pull knives to cut or even untie them. He came forward abruptly behind me. I expected in the instant that he had changed course and was beheading me, but I was horribly wrong. Lucien dodged left, and from a side glance, I saw him move right and thrust the blade forward. In the same horrific instant, I heard Marie's plea for her life and a blood-curdling scream. My heart raced in the moment, and I was bewildered by exactly what Lucien might have done. My mind could not comprehend that Lucien Parsons, my former friend and first mate, could be capable of what I dreadfully suspected had occurred. "Lucien, what have you done?" I yelled, continuing to break loose from my ropes. As the hemp snapped, I heard the thunder roar overhead. My thoughts were as tumultuous as the tempest, while I recovered and screamed in desperation to be released. More bindings snapped to my twisting strain while a fury of lightning crashed down in the distance. I writhed and continued to fight the hemp binding in my thrashing about to reach my beloved Marie. I caught a glimpse of the man reaching for a pistol in his belt. Would this heartless man shoot Marie? I didn't wait to find out. I gathered all my strength to act. "What have you done, Lucien?" From another side glance, I saw Lucien conflicted and backing away, definitely holding a pistol toward my wife. I caught his feet awkwardly moving forward and back out of sorts. To my ever-growing, unnerving, maniacal dread, I heard a gelatinous sucking sound emanating from Marie. It was followed by an equally disturbing sound of cracked bone. My beloved wife, who had screamed in terror, now whimpered and gasped, voiceless. What had happened to bring the man to this most cruelest of acts? Why had Lucien Parsons reacted in such a rage of violence on the cusp of our release? To this day, hundreds of years later, I still don't know. But I have my suspicions that the dark master I serve now might. Dizzied, screaming in outrage and stunned, I couldn't believe what had just happened. I bit chunks of rope away. I broke more as I kicked to free myself from the hemp bindings. I twisted ominously, feeling warm, sticky ooze running between my tied hands. I yelled in a rage and threw all my weight to break the last bindings, realizing Lucien's nefarious deed had unfurled them all. For this damned man, for I would hunt him to hell and beyond, even in death, instead of releasing us from our bindings, had lunged forward right into my beloved's precious beating heart. Lucien Parsons' sword had done its worst to my Marie. In mind-numbing shock, I realized it all as her hands went limp behind me and the warmth of Marie's grasp turned cold. That Lucien had committed the act with full depraved madness was without question. I screeched and screamed, frustrated evermore, as more of Marie's molasses warm blood fell against my hands. All the men on the ship were stopped dead in their tracks. They seemed just as bewildered that such an incomprehensible act, more insidious than their own, could have been done by the passive Lucien Parsons. I cried up a plea to a stormed heaven and its vacant landlord. Then, with no solace, lest the rain was given from my absent benevolent creator, I swore in a futile rage, "You heathen coward of a man!" Anton, it was I heard my wife's killer mumbling like a ranting lunatic. He nervously waved his pistol still in Marie's direction, deciding to shoot her or not. Edging, twisting, and breaking the bindings to get at him, my terror and outrage strengthened my dark resolve. Buying time to kill Lucien Parsons, I roared with all the furies of the seven hells. "You stabbed my defenseless pregnant wife, Lucien Parsons. I will see the life runs out of your eyes for this. I will see, as the devil as my witness, your soul, even in hell itself, never finds a day's peace." The mutineers were bewildered at my sworn vengeance as I lay bound and incapable to act. But they were so egregiously wrong. I heaved with all the fury of an inferno and broke the pirate bindings. I jumped as a panther and rolled across the deck, ripping a sword from a cowardly mutineer. In my leap, I gazed upon what I already knew in my blackest heart. Lucien Parsons' blade had ran through my beloved's heart and was stuck firm in the mast. Deciding to fire on Marie, the confused Lucien raised his pistol. It was the last time he'd used that right hand. I drove down the silver cutlass on his pistol hand, severing it in a blood spray from the wrist. The pistol and twitching right hand fell to the deck. With a second launch of my blade, I finished the work needing to be done to the pirate. I wailed as I launched a thrust into the belly of Lucien Parsons. I saw his bewildered wide eyes look down at the killing strike. I felt his firm left hand, his only hand, grip on my sword arm as I pulled the cutlass from his gut to his rib cage. I was in the midst of ripping him up the center to finish my vengeance when several powerful hands locked on me, beating me back as I yelled on in a fury. "Let me go to my wife, you murderous devils!" I screamed and kicked to be released from my captors. "Or you'll all suffer the same as that butchered black cur in this life or the next." "Let him go to her," Black Jim ordered to the men, for they were no longer my men after what they had allowed. "Lucien went too far. Captain, my humblest apologies. This is beyond even my own worst deeds," he grumbled, looking nervously to all. "It's a bad omen. No good comes from this, men." "Go to hell with your apologies and omens," I responded to the pirate who, as the others, removed his hat and lowered his head respectfully. No one dared go near Marie to remove the blade. No one dared move at all out of fear that more tragedy might befall everyone. I pulled the rusted blade lodged in her heart. I cradled my beloved gently as she fell forward. Our ship's surgeon didn't move to treat her wound at first. I had to rip my shirt and use it to stop her bleeding, and I alone used the hemp that had bound us to secure the bandage over the cutlass strike to her tender heart. "She needs a blanket," I gave my order as I pulled her cold, lifeless body close to me in the downpour of sheeted rain. "By God, you heartless savages! Give me that one mercy after what this spineless cur has done!" I pointed to the twitching Lucien and pleaded as I held my wife firm. A pirate who I did not recognize in the storm-laden darkness pulled off the remnants of the broken ropes. He placed 2 wool blankets over us. Then, as the rain continued to pour, he placed an oilskin cover atop us, blocking out the deluge, whilst I continued to cradle and rock my beloved, sobbing. Sitting on that shifting wooden deck, I looked on Marie and wiped back a strand of her hair as my tears fell. I touched her face and listened for her breathing. There was none that I could detect. For a moment, while the lightning and fluorescent sea set a ghostly emerald glow on their shadowed faces, I looked on all the pirates who had a hand in this betrayal. I studied each face and name between the brief white flashes in the gloom. Then I cast a sneer over to the bloody pool that was Lucien. Although he was surely gutted well and dying, I hissed maniacally at the vile corpse of he that had taken all. As his innards sloshed and writhed like monstrous worms, I leered and cradled my Marie. On his knees, bewildered, with my sword still stuck in his gut, no man dared touch Lucien Parsons. No man dared to go near my wife's heinous murderer. All saw his deadly act to a woman, a pregnant woman, in their own superstitious way. Bad luck it was to have a woman on board, they had said. Even worse if the woman was murdered with child. These mutineers, these damned pirates, were now all cursed men. And looking on them with the vilest of contempt and rage, I caught in their bewildered glances, they all knew it. For you see, we rocked and listed in the deadly seas and dark tides of the Devil's Canyon, a place of ill fates and bad omens where many a man and ship had disappeared. The Devil's Canyon was no Bermuda Triangle where people disappeared just occasionally in these dark, fathomless seas that no pirate or mariner worth his salt ever crossed. The majority of ships always disappeared, never to return. The chance survivors, the rarest few, spoke that the devil himself and his monsters had taken the souls to the fathoms. But in speaking, he didn't call himself the devil. This creature hailed himself as the famed Lucifer, the same vain creature defeated by the archangel Michael and cast from heaven to fall here in the fathomless depths of a mariner's hell. One could believe such things be of truth, for tonight hadn't such deviltry occurred. As the seas towered ever higher, lifting this meager ship, the lightning blazed in arcs of white swirling fury, and the waves crashed ever louder across the bow. Panicked, mutinous men had seen such evil signs. Demon faces, like the one I'd seen myself, had been spotted on the southern horizon's crest. Twisting flame tentacles were spied casting shadows between the purplish blue streaks of thunderheads. A shrill shriek, a deafening, mind-numbing, chaotic roar was heard from the port side seas that dropped a small group of men to their knees, grabbing their ears to silence it. Every pirate took particular note of that occurrence, making signs of the cross and such. More and more, I caught incessant chants of nervous whispers around me and pious shuffling of these normally hardened pirates. Fear abounded in their feeble, superstitious minds of the ancient maritime lore concerning the Devil's Canyon. Once again, lore, superstitions, or whatever you called it, had indeed been gospel. But all the mutineers conceded an even deeper truth as our ship stayed locked in a nightmarish vortex, while we sat trapped in a sudden ocean whirlpool, unable to leave or retreat. Real horrors manifested. Men claimed wraiths or ghouls had climbed on board and pulled men overboard. Some pirates claimed ghosts of their past had come for vengeance, and one man swore he saw a horde of bats with red eyes down in the hold, calling his name. Yes, terrors had surfaced, worse than any these scoundrels could have imagined. Bad places as the Devil's Canyon brought bad omens. A normally peaceful pirate had become a woman killer. The regal and otherwise respectful Lucien Parsons had went sea-mad, murdering a woman for no real cause. And she was no mere woman, my Marie, but their captain's wife. Obviously, a captain's wife being stabbed by sword was a far more horrific crime. Now, all realized they were triple cursed for allowing the killing of the captain's pregnant wife on board in this accursed sea. No God would forgive them, and neither would I. I'm sorry, Anton. I have no idea why. Lucien gasped his final words. He coughed up blood and fell over. Whether he was dead or not, I could give a damn. I rocked my sweet raven-haired angel. I sang her favorite church hymn as the storm blew on and the waves continued their assault. I prayed to God to be merciful and kind. I prayed again that maybe I was wrong and she was just unconscious with shock and trying to mend. I thought optimistically as another wave rolled across the swaying bow. Maybe Lucien's blow has missed her heart. Yes, he missed her heart. He never was a good swordsman. Please, God, for once hear my prayer and let that be so. I babbled inconsolably as I took my beloved Marie again into my arms. I pulled the blanket closer to keep her warm as more chilling, killing winds blew. I continued to check her blood-soaked bandage and ripped more shirt to cover it. Insanely, I tried to give her rainwater and breathe for her when I thought I heard Marie gasp. Always knowing, always fearing, and forever dreading in my own broken heart that my efforts were possibly all in vain. Especially as I watched a single trickle of her red blood move forward and back with purpose. Then the crimson, spidery stream spread out and soaked into the storm-swept deck. Thank you for listening. Have a great night.